Most respected audience, learned members of the public, my dear friends and students, a very good day to you all. Today is the fifth commemoration day, that is the death anniversary of legendary Professor B. Sadagopan. He was son of Bhashyam Iyengar, who wrote historical novels with the pen name Sondilyan. His writing style was much different from the writing style of his contemporaries, and he gave a lot of references for his writings. Thus, he wrote historical novel on scientific methods and was celebrated widely for his efficiency as a writer. Born into an intellectual family, B. Sadagopan had a brilliant school life and reached Loyola College for admission into some science course. But he was convinced by Reverend Father Jerome de Souza, another brilliant Jesuit who became his mentor in later days, who convinced him to take up economics, and he said that I will show you what you can achieve through learning economics. And therefore, he convinced B. Sadagopan. He took economics and later he opted for a career in civil services. And it is said that he several times reached the interview board and he was offered service in various other states which Sadagopan gave up. His mentor, Father Reverend Jerome de Souza, was a brilliant orator, and Sadagopan also had a verve for becoming a good speaker, and therefore he preferred to take up teaching profession, and he first joined Majora College at Madurai. He is a man of high confidence, and once when he was in the interview board asked him something about the railway budget, and he gave an opinion that was completely opposite to the railway budget drafting board, and therefore these interviewers were highly critical of his comments or reaction, and they asked him back that whether you are more brilliant than the persons who are serving in the top brass of the railway ministry. For that, Sadagopan said that there were too many heads which knock with each other and make lot of noise, whereas mine is a single head which gives music. Usually, it is expected to speak pro government ideas in interviews conducted by the government. But Professor Sadagopan had that guts to call a spade a spade. His independent thinking and passion for reading and writing definitely led him towards teaching profession. However, a former colleague of Professor Sadagopan by name Mr. Vadanarasu, he said that Professor Sadagopan was allotted IPS in Kashmir Cadre, which he gave up. He joined Majora College, and after becoming a college level teacher also, he studied several MA courses including in history. He also wrote several textbooks in economics and history. On his death, a newspaper item released some information about him, which stated that he had a very good efficiency in music and also spirituality. And this knowledge of his music and spirituality has been converted into several lectures which he has delivered for the welfare of the general public. What is noticeable here is his depth of knowledge, including economics, history, public administration, music, spirituality, so on and so forth. But irrespective of all that, he did not prefer to register for a PhD, and I humbly think that there could not have been any person of his capability to guide him into a doctoral degree. But all these abilities of Professor Sadagopan sat lightly in his shoulders, and he never underrated any person, and he constantly encouraged his juniors, and he saw only the positive side of all people. He also had a very good orientation towards fitness, and he often had said that he plays parallel bar at the age of 62 when he was teaching us at Loyola College. If we are to show a person who could be an example for the dictum, a sound mind in a sound body, it could be Professor B. Sadagopan. However, he wished to be a teacher and he never held any post like principal or controller of examination or registrar of a university. In fact, if he had been interested, he could have easily reached such postings, but he was passionate towards teaching and only students' welfare. In fact, he kept himself away from organizations and associations like Indian History Congress, South Indian History Congress, Tamil Nadu History Congress, so on and so forth. However, he has taught widely for Madras University, Mysore University, Indira Gandhi National Open University, Madurai Kamaraj University, and several other institutions and strengthened their distance education departments. Professor Sadagopan always clothed in a formal way with a dark pair of long trousers and a light colored full sleeve shirts which he folded three-fourths. In speech and conversation also, he remained very formal. He always carried a small suitcase, and if he opens that, you can find a lot of books pertaining to his subject and also a parcel which has one or two buns to fill his stomach when he is hungry. During my MA course, I organized a guest lecture program by Reverend Father Francis Peter, and it was during his hour that we organized, and Professor Sadagopan very magnanimously allowed his hour to be conducted by Reverend Father Francis Peter, and he himself participated as a viewer. And after the end of the session, he openly commented on that. The topic is about paradigmal shift, and Professor Sadagopan said that I have a very poor pronunciation. I remember that he used very rare and archaic terms during his lectures, which inspired us to empower our word power ability. But however, a very different perspective is being given by Professor Sadagopan, who said that my pronunciation is very bad and poor. And he said that I am pronouncing the word paradigm as paradigm so far, and now I have learned that. And he appreciated the ability of Reverend Father Francis Peter wholeheartedly, and he said that he has benefited from the lecture also. And that points to the largesse of Professor Sadagopan's heart and mind. He had the gift of narrating events, and on one occasion he narrated the course of events pertaining to the Hindi strike, and he said that the nephew of Pasumban Muthuramalinga Thevar was standing with his friends and comrades within the premise of Majra College, whereas the battalion of the Malabar Police is waiting outside the campus of Majra College. In between the two groups, a huge gate of Majra College is protecting the emergence of a chaotic situation. But a mischievous student hurled a stone which straightly went to the head of the commandant, who was just removing his helmet for clearing it from the perspiration of the hot sun. When the stone fell on his head, he did not shout, "Ah!" Rather, he shouted, "Charge!" And 100 Malabar police constables, they fell on the gate of Majora College, and this huge gate was shattered into pieces, and the police constables entered into the campus like a marauding army against poor enemies, and they attacked almost every person, and the principal was thrown like a football. All these constables are 6 feet tall and 2 feet broad, and their upper segment is blocked. He means to say that they do not think at all and distinguish between teachers and students, and they went on striking everybody and attacking whoever came on their way. One constable with heavy booted legs, he hit my thighs, and I have a huge scar now. At the time, 7 or 8 stitches were made, and the whole situation became chaos. He had such an impact on us, and when I became principal, I always thought that principals are here only to be thrown like footballs, and no doubt I am also literally thrown like a football. He possessed a very good sense of humor also. I think on one occasion, in order to clear the caste and racial purity kind of beliefs, he said that maternity is a matter of certainty, whereas paternity provides scope for doubt. He further added that that is why when the relatives of a newborn child, they always remark that this child looks like his or her father. He was again gifted to have made such statements in a very accommodative institution. Some institutions these days they view these kinds of statements in a very bad light, and they will sentence to hang a person who made such statement to die. On another occasion, he said that I visited a wedding ceremony, and the priest who is organizing that ceremony was uttering mantras which has to be said during funeral rites. I jumped in between and stopped him and commanded him to chant the appropriate mantras. When he was blinking, I started the appropriate mantras, and the wedding was consummated smoothly. In yet another circumstance, when he got to know that I am from Tirunelveli, he said that I have visited Tirunelveli once to look for a bride for my life, and that bride she rejected me. And I said, "Sir, that bride must be unlucky." For which Professor Sadagopan said, "No, no, Mr. Vincent. Rather, that girl is lucky and I am unlucky." It shows to go the sense of humility the professor had, and it was one of the greatest assets of a teacher who constantly inspired his students. The way he conducted class in an elitist background was enjoyed and appreciated by all his students, and his treatment of the backward and poor students is marked by a sense of care and love. Particularly sportsmen, they benefited by his ground to earth personality. Despite his busy schedule, he was engaged in reading our assignments. As far as assignments are concerned, he was highly appreciative of the language style of one Mr. Arif Hussain, our classmate. And he also was appreciative of other elite students such as Somakanta Singh, Brother Ananias Tete, Miss Lima Antoinette Bramila, Mr. Moses, Mr. Kamal Kumar Chaudhary, and Mr. Mahalingam. Among all these students, it is Mr. Mahalingam who went up to JNU and completed his PhD. And Mr. Mahalingam, he preferred to call the suitcase of Professor Sadagopan as Pandora's box, for which Sadagopan always reacted with a cool smile. Apart from these intelligent students, there are ordinary students who are poor in language also. So he very efficiently handled his class with a balance, and he rendered justice to every student in his class. The discussions and argument between him and Somakanta Singh was very interesting. When he says that the name of Chennai city was earlier Chennapattanam, immediately Somakanta will come out with his statement stating that no sir, it is Madras Patnam. So both will be going into the source materials they have at hand and discuss that, and we students benefited from their discussion. It is a kind of dialectics which enhance the knowledge of all students who are observing the discussion. We should thank students like Somakanta Singh and Arif Hussain for immensely contributing for the enrichment of the intellectual development of our class. One interesting aspect about Professor Sadagopan is that he had a huge orientation for classical music, classical literature on the one hand, whereas on the other hand, he was also a film goer and he was an ardent fan of James Bond movies, and he also had a passion for war movies, and he was the man who introduced me the movie The Bridge on the River Kwai, which I have seen several times, and whenever I see that movie I remember Professor Sadagopan. But it was unfortunate that we did not have more discussions on Hollywood movies and failed to explore his passion on that count. Personally, when he calls me Mr. Vincent, it was like a goosebump moment because Vincent is my father's name, and since there was no Christian name in my original name, that is Vinod Rajesh, this Christian name was fully pronounced in the place of a mere initial. However, whenever I spoke with Professor, he called me Mr. Vincent. Once, when he learned that my parents are working in different districts and my brother is also studying in a different district, he called my family as national family. In his words, Mr. Vincent, yours is a national family, and I do not forget this national commitment, and we are still a national family. Like Professor Sadagopan having a brilliant father, I had a very able mother who was an ardent fan of Sondelian, apart from who she liked also Muhammad Rafi and Shakespeare. But when my mother passed away, we did not have any article to add to her coffin. So then I remembered that had I said this to Professor Sadagopan, he must have given something in remembrance of his father, which I failed to do. So after my mother's death, I once met Professor Sadagopan and registered this inability of mine to say that my mother was his father's fan. He regretted and said, Mr. Vincent, if had you said that before, I would have given you something in my father's remembrance. Why you did not say that? He said. Similarly, once when Mr. A.K. Vishwanath IPS, a superintendent of police, visited our campus, he was introduced to Professor Sadagopan by Professor Sudhakar and Professor Bernardi Swami. At that time, Professor Sadagopan said, let me see you as DG police before I die. But when Professor Sadagopan died, Mr. A.K. Vishwanath was only an ADGP. Until his death at the 86th year, He was very active, and when I was searching for his biodata, it was found in Central Law School University of Tiruchirappalli. So, Professor was very active and he has left us a great legacy, and he is a constant inspiration, and we have to follow his footprints, particularly if you are a teacher or researcher. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.